What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise therapy session presented by Bet Online. The Blazers tonight lose their fourth straight game, 5 out of 6. They lose tonight to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 114-96. Another game without Dame, another game where the Blazers come up lame. I should stop spitting bars, but dude, I'm struggling with these losses, man. But first off, before we jump into things, this post-game show is once again sponsored by betonline.ag. You can use promo code BELIEVE to receive 50% rewards. You can get in on live betting, parlays, all sorts of fun stuff to maybe take the sting off these Blazers losses. Check out our friends over on Bet Online and remember that promo code BELIEVE for 50% rewards. Thank you to them. Huge thank you to them once again for sponsoring the stream. So if you want to get in on anything, any betting action, definitely check them out. All right, Eric. So, what's up, man?
All right. Well, first of all, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. But Tori, play the video.
All right, I'm going to play this video. Halftime interview.
Coach down 9, what was your message to the guys at halftime?
We're right there. We got our fight back in the middle of the second quarter. They made some unbelievable shots at the end of the shot clock and at the end of the quarter. We're right there. Just got to keep playing our game, our style of game. It'll work out good for us.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, hopefully you guys could hear that. But Eric, you wanted me to play that clip. What are your thoughts on this game and like that halftime speech from Rodney Billups, not Chauncey, Rodney Billups?
I'm frustrated, man. That's the exact opposite of what you should be saying with the play right now. When you're losing 4 games, it's not, oh, we're right there, we're fine, we're just keep doing the things, we'll win this game, you know? No, you played like crap in the first half. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, get the heck off our coaching staff if that's your level of coaching and what you're seeing on the floor. But for those who couldn't hear it, he basically said, oh, we're playing good. They just made some tough shots at the end of the shot clocks, and yeah, we're fine. We just got to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll win this game. Like no, man, that's crap, dude. You guys are playing like crap. You're giving very poor effort. You're blowing assignment after assignment on defense. You're messing up pick and roll coverages. You can't box out. You make a stupid foul at the twice at the end of quarters with less than a second left on the clock, and oh no, we're playing fine. We just got to keep doing it. Like, no, man, stop, man. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's like, no, you got this way because you guys had something to prove, right? It was, we got to grind out these wins. We got to play hard all the time. We have to play together, connected. You know how many like connection mistakes we made today with people not communicating and stuff and giving up a wide open shot?
Yeah.
It's like, I want this team to have that attitude back. That's the attitude they had in the first, 12 games of the season or whatever it was. That the attitude completely switched after the Spurs game. They start writing articles about how good Dame's defense is. They start writing articles about how good Chauncey's coaching, right? And ever since then, we're 10-4, and we've come out flat and not had very good effort and really bad defense in every game since then. It doesn't make any sense to me. These guys act like winning a few games early in the season means that they're going to be a good team, and it's not that way. We need to play hard, and you can't let up. You have to have that mindset the entire season and for the entire game, or you're going to get beat pretty handily by good teams like this.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think it's a situation where you have nobody defensively you can trust to put on a guard. I think that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is I think teams are kind of slowly figuring out the little wrinkles that Portland was throwing at teams defensively to start the season. You also have a lack of effort, it seems like, in the past 4 or 5 games. I don't know why that is, but I was worried maybe this team was satisfied with their success 14 games in, and that kind of got to their head a little bit. We've seen that happen with a number of teams in every season. They start off hot, they come back down to earth. Some will bounce back, and some will prove that the start of the season was a fluke. I don't think the start of the season was a fluke per se, but I think you're missing a lot of things that made the first 14 games so successful for this Blazer team. I think a big part of that is a couple of the guys that you trust defensively haven't been as good defensively as they were the first 14 games. I think that's a little bit of Josh Hart, but mostly it's Justice Winslow, who is terrible defensively tonight, and Nasir Little as well, just is not stepping up and getting the job done. I think Sharp has regressed defensively as well. I don't know if he played a single meaningful minute in the second half, and we're talking about a dude who was starting for Dame, but defensively he's... his effort level or like focus seems to be missing a little bit as well. Watford didn't play at the start of the season, but since he's come back, he has not been good defensively whatsoever. And you just have too many guys that aren't getting it done on the defensive end. The guys that you trust, which are Winslow and Grant, Chauncey's putting Grant up against guards, which does not work. It has not worked all season, and it did not work tonight. He got torched. And then Justice Winslow, he ends up starting. He ends up guarding Evan Mobley, but Justice Winslow is... I don't know. I don't want to go into a rant about Justice Winslow this early, so I'm going to save it for later. But he just has not been good.
Yep, and the frustrating part to me is not that we're losing games, it's that we're not playing the same style and not having that same mindset that we had when we were winning games. Yeah. And that's frustrating to me because you can get that back at any point. You just have to play harder and want to win more. Like, you just have to have that grind attitude again and not act like you guys are, we're a top 10 defense, we don't have to try as hard anymore. And that's what's frustrating to me, is just watching them basically give up on plays when they know they can't do that and expect to win any games. They're never going to win if they have the amount of mistakes they had with players just falling asleep and pick and roll coverage, not communicating who's supposed to take who. And I have several good examples in Brant's breakdown later of what happened and why I'm disgusted with the way this team is playing right now.
Yep. I think offense can kind of bleed into bad defense, especially on the road when the offense is just as messy as it was today. The Blazers end up shooting 45% from the field, 42% from three on 31 three-point attempts. They were 13 for 31. 35 for 78 from the field, though, which means that they went 22 for 57 inside the arc, which is not a good clip. I can pull up the calculator and calculate the 2-point percentage, but you're talking about a team that got into the paint and scored efficiently to start the season. That is missing. No, that percentage isn't right. Wait, let me do the math on that again. They had 35 field goals minus 13. They had 22 makes, 78 minus 31 attempts. Okay, 22 for 47. Yeah. That's still not good. It's 47%. But this team also isn't getting to the line as much. 13 free throw attempts. Cleveland had 23. That was something the Blazers had going earlier in the year. I think the refereeing in this game was kind of questionable. But regardless, without Dame, you just don't have enough creation on this team. And this team has gotten more stagnant. I don't know if it's because they don't have Dame that they've gotten more stagnant. I think that might be part of it. But this entire game, Eric, especially in the first half when the Blazers had, I think, double-digit turnovers, was Ant creating 4 guys standing around watching and the defense collapsing on drives and then Ant getting stuck and turning the ball over. He had a turnover or two that was like questionable where he just threw it to a defensive player. He had that one up the sideline. I don't remember his first or second half. It was when they were going to the right side of the court. But you don't have enough shot creation on this team in order to play stagnant offense. And when you don't have Dame and the offense is this stagnant, I mean, what's the solution? You got to run stuff. And that's where I think Chauncey is failing right now because they're not running enough sets. I said last game, get Anthony Simons off the ball, run him off screens, and try and get him open threes that way. And then maybe he can get hot and then he can hit some stuff off the dribble. Or if he's coming off a screen, maybe he has a driving lane then, and the defense isn't necessarily as set to swallow him up. But the thing is this whole game, him and Jeremy Grant, they combined for 9 turnovers. They had at least 7 in the first half. They had 7 with some time left in the first half. And most of their turnovers were them trying to drive against a set defense, a good Cleveland defense, with 2 elite rim protectors sitting there waiting in the wings, and this Cleveland Cavaliers defense was just collapsing on their drives, and they had no good options. So the Blazers played directly into what Cleveland wants to do defensively. I think that having Justice Winslow out there on the court in the starting lineup was a mistake because he can't shoot threes. Evan Mobley got to guard him and just roam and help, and you already got Jared Allen guarding Yusuf Nurkic, so you already got Jared Allen down low. Evan Mobley can just leave the shooter in the corner or wherever and help out with Jared Allen. You're not going to have much success driving the ball against the Cleveland Cavaliers defense, and they do a really good job defending the paint without fouling as well. So that's what worked really well for the Blazers when they were winning games. In this game specifically, they obviously not having Dame hurts, but I think the spacing was an issue, and I also think they were just extremely stagnant, didn't run enough, but certain guys got a cut as well. Justice Winslow's not cutting enough. Nasir Little isn't cutting enough. Shaedon Sharp's not cutting enough. Like, all these guys that were cutting the first 14 games aren't cutting anymore. And when they do, Eric, it almost became a situation in this game where guys were just standing behind the three-point arc, so everyone that drove just assumed it was a kick-out pass to the three-point arc. Because there was twice that Ant had 2 turnovers. One was trying to pass to Josh Hart, who was actually cutting for once, and one was a pass to Nasir Little, who was cutting for once, and Ant threw him like he was expecting them to stay behind the three-point line. And though 2 possessions where they cut, and Ant didn't expect it, right? So I don't know if that's because guys have been standing behind the arc so much that Ant didn't expect guys to cut, or what those were, but I think it could be a situation where Ant was surprised guys were cutting because they haven't been these past 4 games. So that's, I mean, it's they're getting away from what they did that worked in the first 14 games of the season, and then not having Dame as well compounds that. So I think that's why you saw 16 turnovers tonight. I think that's why you saw Ant struggle, and this Blazer team wasn't able to attack the rim effectively at all.
Well, we saw the times where Winslow got the ball in the paint and had Eubanks rim running, and he just lobs it up to him, and it's a dunk, right? We had a couple over-the-top passes to Nurk where he got a dunk and that as well. So when we had the big down below the basket, it worked out for us. But at the beginning of this game, we started off, I don't get it, Tori. We had Jeremy Grant setting the picks on Ant, and then they were basically hedging or showing on Ant. So Grant was wide open in the short roll right around the free throw line. So Ant was dumping it off to him. And you have a case where you have your best shooter passing the ball, and he's got 2 guys on him. So he's out of the play.
Yep.
So then you have Jeremy Grant, and we have Nurk, Hart, and Winslow standing at the three-point lines on both sides. And Grant has nowhere to go because they just packed the lane, and you have to get around Mobley or Allen or sometimes both. And if he does kick it out, it's to Justice Winslow or someone who they leave completely wide open. And like, you can't play offense that way against a good defensive team. Like, that's just going to kill you. And if you're going to start Winslow, you have to have some design cuts towards the basket in those situations. If he just cuts there, he probably gets a lay-in or a dunk if Jeremy Grant just takes a dribble in and attracts the big guy to him and then just dumps it off to the cutter. But we didn't do that at all. Like, why have that set up for Jeremy Grant specifically? It was designed to play through him in the short roll in this game, and we had probably our 3 worst spacers on the floor with him in that situation in a 4-on-3 and with no cutting. Like, that's just horrible coaching, horrible game plan, horrible execution on the court if they were supposed to cut. And then on top of that, we have a big lineup. How many times have we heard, oh, we can't have a good defensive lineup with 2 small guards, right?
Yeah.
Well, we started freaking Justice Winslow, Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart, and Yusuf Nurkic. Like, those are 4 of our best defenders, if not our 4 best defenders, minus Gary Payton, who's hurt. And we still, they made so many mistakes, and we're just getting blown by. We have no perimeter defense, no point of attack defense. And man, Chauncey's got to figure this out, dude. Like Grant on a guard does not work, man. It just doesn't. They got away with it against certain teams earlier in the season because the rest of our defense was pretty locked in. But now our backside defense is getting like it's impossible to keep up that level of defense when you're constantly having a guy coming downhill after they just blew by someone on the perimeter. It can't work that way. Chauncey's got to figure that out, man.
Yeah. That's the thing, though, is who is a good point of attack defender right now? Justice Winslow was supposedly a good point of attack defender. But, Eric, like, since he came back for missing a couple games, like, the dude can't make a shot, right? And I've been outspoken about that. I do understand why people like him because of the other things he does. The problem is he's not doing those other things that make him potentially a benefit having him on the court. And I talked about this a lot last game, right? His shooting today, 2 for 10, 1 for 3, airballed a wide open 3, sat behind the 3-point arc, took like 6 floaters from 10 feet, which is just a shot he shouldn't be shooting. I know he made a couple of them last game, but it's like, oh, I made a couple, I'm going to shoot 10 in the next 2 games, right? So that was frustrating, but what's he supposed to be, right? Okay, he can pass. He had 6 assists today. No turnovers. Okay, that's nice. But the problem is in most possessions, he's not getting an assist. Most possessions, he's hurting the team because he's either sitting behind the 3-point arc hurting spacing or he's taking a shot that he doesn't make. But then, okay, he's supposed to make up for it on the defensive end. I thought he was horrible defensively today. There was multiple times I watched Justice Winslow, and I don't know if he's still injured or what, but it looked like he was giving 50% of the effort that he gave at the start of the season. Like, his effort level looked bad. I don't know if he's gassed or what the reason is, but his effort level defensively tonight I thought was really, really poor. I thought he got cooked every time he was on the ball against a guard. He's supposed to provide value on the defensive end and be one of our best defenders, but in the past few games, I think he's been poor defensively, and I think that's part of the reason why the defense has gotten worse.
Yeah, and this goes along with the mindset thing I was talking about at the top of the show. I saw them like before the tip, right? And Winslow's just standing there, kind of looked down or depressed or something, you know? And it seems to be that attitude of the defense right now. What happened to, I'm going to shut this guy down? We talked about this with Nas last game, right? It's not just Nas, it's the whole team. Like Winslow now is doing that. Grant's doing it. Now like Nurk's body language was a little poor tonight on defense, and then you've got Eubanks coming in blocking shots, but he's like chasing blocks now and giving up weak side lay-ins and dunks and stuff. It just seems like, I mean, Eubanks is playing with intensity. I'm not saying he's not, but like pretty much everyone else, the body language is so bad on defense now. It's like oh, I'm going to try to play defense, but it's going to be hard, you know? And that's not the attitude you have to have. Winslow's got to come in and be like, I'm going to shut these guys down. That's the only skill he has if he's going to, that's the mindset he has to have if he's going to be a useful player in the NBA. And I feel like he's kind of lost that. He's just kind of playing hesitant and stuff lately. And I thought Hart did a much better job. It's not his fault he has to guard Evan Mobley. I thought he did about as good of a job as he could have on him.
I was
going to
say, let me say something, and then I'll let you keep going. But like, I feel like the only guy that had good intensity effort level and has maintained that effort level throughout this struggle has been Josh Hart. But he doesn't get the challenge of guarding a Donovan Mitchell or a Darius Garland. Right? I mean, like he doesn't get that challenge enough. Like, it's always Jeremy Grant has to be on one of those guys, even though he struggles getting through screens and Grant got cooked, right? Like, Josh Hart is a tone setter, but he doesn't get the challenge of guarding the best opposing players. So it's like your breakdown start from having somebody else on guys, and then Hart's trying to make up for it, but you're already at a disadvantage on defensive possessions. I would rather have Hart set the tone from the point of attack, being a good point of attack defender, and then letting those guys try and play defense behind that, instead of having Hart off the ball and Grant getting screened out of plays and everybody just scrambling with their heads cut off, right? But keep going about Josh.
Well, like, yeah, I don't get why he's not more the point of attack defender with this lineup. I understand once we have Peyton back, maybe but I just feel like we talked about this all year, that Grant and even Winslow are showing that they're better help defenders, not on-ball defenders, and Hart is probably better on-ball, and we just don't do it. But Grant and Winslow cannot get through a screen, and it's really frustrating, and to just watch it happen time and time again and not see us adjust to it at all.
And I think that's why we switch everything, even when it's Hart getting through screens. Because Chris G in chat says Hart actually guard the ball off in top of the key, but Blazers switch too easily. Yeah, it's because nobody else can, like Simons can get through screens, Hart can get through screens, but they're not the guys that get tasked with guarding the guards. It's guys that can't get through screens, and then it becomes a situation where it's like, oh, well, these guys can't get through screens, we got to switch, and then the opposing team is just attacking mismatches the entire time. Mm-hmm. So that's a problem. Like this. You only have like Nas isn't somebody you can trust at the point of attack right now. Neither is Justice Winslow. Neither is Jeremy Grant if he's dealing with a screen. So that's where our problems come in. And then when we switch to zone, which was good, teams are a little bit more prepared for it now.
Well, it's especially magnified too. Like I said, when you combine that with them seemingly not believing that they can stop anyone either right now, because in order to be a good point of attack defender, you have to be aggressive, and you have to be like, crazies might not be the right word, but you have to be like a little, like, it's like a cornerback in football, right? Every cornerback thinks they're the best cornerback in the league and they're going to shut the receiver down or whatever. And sure, they get toasted on occasion, but it's like, oh, like something happened on that play. It's never going to happen again type of thing, right? But now we're just like going through like, oh, I'm going to try to stay in front of Mitchell. Like maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Like that's how I feel they're playing. And it's weird because like you look back at the beginning of last season, our defense wasn't good, but remember how often we just flat out blitzed a screen with Nurkic and he like blew up a screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might have resulted in a basket down below, but I haven't seen that at all this year. Like we hedge a little bit, we switch a lot, we show and recover a lot, but there hasn't been like a huge, like just flat out bust through and trap the screen and try to get the ball out of the ball handler's hands. I feel like we're being way too conservative on defensive coverages right now. And I'd like to see them get a little bit more aggressive at the beginning of games, especially when you have a lineup with those defenders I was talking about. Like, set the tone early with a super aggressive defense. You're not going to stop them every time, but our defense sucks anyway, so why not, like, at least try to force some turnovers and get out and run like other teams are doing to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me thank a dono. Shout out to Carson, $5 dono. What's up, Carson? Says, breaking the stereotype that people donate less after an L. Sure hope we turn things around and get back to where we were earlier this year. Love y'all. Love you too, Carson. Thank you for the dono, man. Yeah, it's there's still room for optimism. Mm-hmm. Like, there's still hope that we can turn things around. I mean, if it was flipped, Eric, if it was flipped like the last, six games where we've lost 5 out of 6 and the first 12 games, we'd have 400 people in here right now and we'd be hooting and hollering and like, let's go. This team is finally playing the basketball we asked, right? Instead, it's the other way around. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that are tough. We said this was going to be a tough month in November. Mm-hmm. We said going in that 500 after November was a positive thing. And the thing is we got almost to 500 after November when we were 10-4 and lost 4 in a row. Obviously, it sucks, but this is why we need Gary Payton II, because we don't have an on-ball defender we can trust. When we get Gary Payton II back, hopefully his injury isn't something that reduces his effectiveness, right? Like, and hopefully it's not a situation where, I finally got paid, I'm not going to play the same exact way as I did last year. Like, we need Gary Payton II to come in and do what he did last year for the Golden State Warriors, and then I think you'll see maybe better effort level from somebody. But it's like, if you have Gary Payton II that you can sub in early into the game if the defense is bad and he can set the tone, right? And then you got Josh Hart, maybe Chauncey Billups will learn. Put Josh Hart on guards that run through a lot of pick and rolls, and don't just automatically switch because you want to put Jeremy Grant on those pick and rolls, but he can't get through them, right? Like, that could help our defense out a ton. Obviously, you get Dame back. He'll help things out offensively. Like, we've seen some good things offensively. We're seeing the bad right now. But this feels like rock bottom for the first month and a half of the season, right? It could obviously get worse, but given the hard schedule, given the injuries, given how wide open the West looks, nobody should write off this team. Like, I see a lot of people say, I'm not going to watch them for a while. This is too frustrating, this and that. I mean, it's a part of the process. And this team needs to learn where it needs to improve, to not only improve internally, but potentially make a move at some point soon. Maybe even tonight we'll start discussing potential trades or what this team needs to fix in terms of the roster construction. But it's always been a marathon. So, like I get frustrated with specific things in games. Long term, I'm still not worried. Long term, it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes. You've seen the good, you've seen the upside, you've seen the bad that had people ranking this team, 8th in the West, 9th in the West. But even though I had them at 8th going into the season, I said this team has the upside to be a home court advantage team. We've seen both the upside and the expectations, okay? It'll either go one of two ways. Nothing about this struggle means that the start of the season was meaningless. So that's where I'm at with this team. How do you feel?
There's two lines of thinking right now. If you're an optimist, you could say they could easily get back to where they were playing at the beginning of the season. And even without Dame, they had some great moments this year where they played great team basketball, were locked in on defense, and won against some really good teams. So you could say, yeah, this is something that they just need to get out of this funk and play like they were earlier in the season, and they're fine. And they're still, even if they fall, down to the play-in area, which they are now, they're still, like Zach points out in chat, only 1.5 games out of first place. So, and that's before the Jazz game is final tonight. They're losing right now to Detroit. So
yeah, well, let me just ask you this. If the Jazz lose, we're going to be 1 game back of second, 1.5 games back of first. Yeah. If I said before the season, Eric, especially after that awful preseason, if I sat here and said, guys, would you take on November 23rd being 1.5 games back of first place with Dame missing half the season, I think everyone would have taken it, right? Like, I think everyone would have taken it. Now, you would have expected if you're a game and a half back in first place, the record would maybe be a little bit better, right? But that's the thing is, like, every Western Conference team has had struggles. Like, it's our turn to struggle. Every Western Conference team has had a losing streak. Like Phoenix is in first place right now, and they're, injured. But, I mean, they lost to us when we didn't have Dame or Ant. They lost to us 2 out of the 3 games this season, right? And they recently had a stretch where they lost 4 of 6, right? We've lost 5 of 6. They had a loss against the Magic, against the Heat, Jazz, some of the teams that we have losses to, the Magic being a bad loss there. But that's the thing. They're in first place, though. So every team has had these struggles. Like, I get being super frustrated with the play, but I am kind of disappointed to see how many Blazer fans that were here to start the season, like, oh my goodness, we're here, we've arrived, this and that, all this positivity. It's kind of alarming how quick some people are to jump off the bandwagon when we're only a game and a half at first, right? So that's the optimism in me. I do understand the pessimism, and I'll let you explain that, but I mean, this is how every team in the West has had a season, and any team in the West missing their best player, if Phoenix was missing Devin Booker right now and they were 10-8, like, we would say, oh, well, when they get Booker back, right? But with us, it's like, since it's the style of play, it's obviously a little bit more alarming, but still, we're still missing Dame, missing our best offensive and defensive players. Like, there's a lot of reason for optimism. But Eric, sorry, I keep going on tangents and stuff.
It's okay. I just want to say, like, the other part of that, though, is if you're kind of looking at this pessimistically, like, I do get it, because we're not playing the same way we did at the beginning of the season. We're making all kinds of defensive breakdowns. The offense is stagnant. They're still turning the ball over like crazy. They haven't figured that out yet. So it's not like a case where if this happened at the beginning of the season, like you were saying, and then we were playing more locked in on defense now, you could be like, dude, we struggled at the beginning of the season, but look how much it's improved in just, 20 games or, however long into the season, 18 games we are. But now it's a case of we're like regressing, not getting better. So like, I understand, like, I'm not saying you should be positive or negative. It's hard. I like to find a balance of both. I'm extremely frustrated. Like when I analyze these games, all the mistakes they're making.
Yeah, you don't give them a pass, as Emerson says.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely don't give them a pass for any
Right.
of this stuff, and I'll be ranting about stuff 10, 15 minutes from now. But
And then, but at the same time, when you do take a step back at the bigger picture, like I said, it's still capable. It's not like the season's over or like we're done and have no path of figuring it back out again. So like I see both sides. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. So like don't like go off on someone in chat because they feel one way or the other. I think they're both valid ways to feel right now. So I get it both ways, and we're gonna bring up both ways because we try to analyze everything here on the show.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, since we started the channel, I've never seen such a big drop-off between wins and losses in terms of, like, our stream performance is just crazy. And I think it's a situation, I think it's reflective of this. I think Blazer fans got so... And I was kind of one of them, but I'm still not super down on the team, but I think a lot of fans got super optimistic and hyped up at the start of the season. Because we have a start of the season like that. Even back to the Aminu and Harkless and Stotts years, it was always a late season run, right? We've never started a season like that. So the fact that we started out a season that well, the only other time we started out a season that well was the first year we had Robin Lopez and we had Dame in his second season back in 2013, 2014. Other than that, we don't start off seasons hot. So I think it's a situation where fans got so happy and excited at that team that it's even harder to handle the way this team is playing right now. And is something that I feel like Blazer fans just like after how excited they got for this team, they don't even want anything to do with how this team is playing right now. So I understand it. I think that's what you're seeing a lot in this fan base, though, is if we started off the season like playing 500 ball and we're still playing 500 ball, I think people are more bought into this team right now compared to starting off that high and then getting the rug swept out from underneath them.
Well, to that point, what was our record after 18 games last season, Tori?
Probably kind of close, honestly.
It was 10-8.
Was it?
Yep. We are coming off a 4-game winning streak in which we had just beaten the Raptors, the Bulls, the 76ers, and the Nuggets all at home. And we're headed down to Sacramento. As you know, we have struggled mightily on the road last year.
Yeah, well, we were an elite team to start last year at home.
Yeah.
The problem is we couldn't figure out how to take it on the road.
So we were 10-8, coming on a 4-game winning streak, headed down to Sacramento, and we lose a close game in Sacramento, and then we play the next night in 2 nights later in Golden State and lose. I think that might have been the game that like Curry went off on us and we played like terrible. But like we had just think of last year, we were so bad on the road. And so it was like, oh man, if we just figured out how to play on home, and we just won 4 home games. Now let's let this momentum go to the road. Maybe we can figure stuff out from this home streak. And then we like lost a bunch of games and it was over. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It seems so much different this year being 10-8 than last year.
Well, yeah, because Dame isn't screwed for the entire season because he's hurt and needs surgery. You know what I mean? And I still think we have a better team, a more complete team, and a team that will be able to handle adversity better. We're seeing adversity now. The moment like adversity truly hit for last year's team, like guys on this team folded. I don't think we have guys like that. And if we do, I think you have enough guys that will be bought in that you can just replace guys that aren't and still build towards, potentially making a run. So that's why it feels different, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think there's comments in chat about how GP2 won't fix anything. Bob and Weave, I absolutely disagree with everything you've said. GP2 can get through screens. GP2's effort level, effort is contagious. He's a tone setter. Having him and Josh Hart being able to put those guys on the floor for 30 minutes a game, hopefully 35 minutes a game, will make it easier to play the guys that aren't given the effort less, or to bench them. But then also the dude can slide his feet, plays off ball well, communicates well, does all of that. That all the things he does defensively will help this team and be an example for this team. I don't see a world, unless GP2 is severely limited due to the injury he's recovering from, I don't see any other world where he does not come in and instantly help this basketball team.
Yeah, and that's, going back to his Oregon State game, or Oregon State days, that's a guy who always has that effort. He had to grind to get in this league. Now, that's the only other thing you could say is sometimes when someone gets paid, he finally got a contract instead of having to grind to get on a team each year. And last year he wasn't even on a team. He was volunteering to be a video coordinator for the Warriors just to stay in their practices and stuff. And he ends up getting signed by them later, and then making a huge impact for them on the run to a championship. So the hope would be that money doesn't change him. But his dad was obviously one of the best NBA players of all time. So it's not like money is a huge thing for him as compared to some people in that situation it might have been. So yeah, the hope is that money wouldn't be a thing, but yeah.
I also don't think you do the things he does defensively just because you're motivated by money.
Right, yeah.
That's a DNA. Some of the things he does defensively is like a DNA thing.
He did make the comment about it, and you were worried about it in the offseason. But...
I wasn't worried. I just said that's not exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Which was ambiguous. But,
my whole aside, I'm not saying he is about the money or anything. I'm just saying that's the only other thing I would say other than the injury is sometimes people let off the gas once they get paid. But I don't think that's going to be the case with GP.
He's not sitting here on the court thinking money, money, money. Okay, I'm going to position myself perfectly. Money, money, money. There's the ball. I'm going to go chase it like it's a bag. Money, money, steal, lay-in. You know what I mean? He plays hard. It's in his DNA. You can tell. There's certain guys where it's just they're just competitors. You don't play... If you're motivated by money, that's not enough motivation to be a true competitor like he is. Josh Hart got his payday. That guy still has given the most consistent effort. That dude just throws his body into people, even though he's taken a ton of hard falls. On both ends of the court, that guy tries so hard. Maybe he tries too hard and overthinks a little bit offensively, which is why he only shot 5 shots in 33 minutes today, even though we probably needed him to be a little bit more aggressive. But that dude plays his ass off and takes it personally, and you hear stories about him taking pickup games personally. That's the type of guy that you don't have worries about. The problem is there's a couple other guys on this team that you do have worries about, but when you have enough guys that play hard, then it's easier for other guys to get bought in when they see that. So you need guys to set the tone. Right now, Josh Hart's the only guy setting the tone. You have other guys that were supposed to be guys that set the tone, and Justice Winslow, that I don't know if he's injured or what's the issue with him. He was sick, a week and a half ago, so maybe his conditioning is just still struggling. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and try and think up excuses for him. I just can analyze what I see. He has not played like he's giving effort, or the effort he gave earlier in the season, and that's a problem. You just got too many guys that are kind of lackadaisical right now, and you need a GP2 to come in and set that tone. And Dame before he got hurt too was playing some of the hardest defense he's ever played in his career. But the thing is his injury, Eric, has been a big factor in this spiral, because the last 2 games he shot the ball very bad. The last 2 games he played, which was against San Antonio and then Brooklyn. Correct? Yeah. And we barely beat San Antonio. We struggled in that game, and then we lose to Brooklyn.
Well, he got hurt against the Jazz. He was 1 for 12 from 3 in that game and 2 for 14 overall.
Oh, okay. But still, since he came back from his first calf injury, he kind of struggled shooting the ball, but it tailed off, and it kind of coincided with this struggle, right? And it's like, but he was playing his ass off defensively. I still think this team was playing decently hard defensively until Dame got hurt. And since then, the effort level seems to be missing a little bit. But that's the thing, is like Dame's a leader, and Dame was actually stepping up and having some big defensive possessions and playing hard defensively. And then since he's been gone, it's like the team has felt different from a defensive effort standpoint, which is crazy to say that Dame might end up being a tone setter defensively, but shoot, that dude was playing his ass off. You said at one of those games too, and it's like I don't even think he was 100% now. And you said he gave phenomenal effort and talked about in the post game. So having that guy as a leader, I think, is definitely needed as well.
And I mean, obviously, lose by 18, having, Gary Payton play 15 to 20 minutes probably doesn't win us this game tonight. Like, we still probably lose without Dame. But like in terms of throughout the course of the season, I mean, it's not even the years where we were super bad defensively. We weren't that far away from being like middle of the pack if we just had a couple more stops. And that's definitely possible from a guy like Gary Payton, just getting you like 2 or 3 more stops a game that you wouldn't get before. And that can be a game changer. And if it leads to a fast break on offense because you got a steal or something, that then has a snowball effect of the offense plays a little quicker too. And I thought that's one of the reasons why we actually got off to a decent start in this game tonight was we got some stops and pushed the tempo and got some good shots. But when we slowed it down in the half court, it was just a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's the guy who can grab a rebound or get a steal and go and take it all the way or set up his teammates for something else. And he doesn't hesitate to bring the ball up. So we need players like that.
Yep. Thank you to Carter Dick for the $5 dono. Says, I love Nurkic and want to see him succeed, but with Eubanks overperforming the way he is, do you see a conversation happening about who starts at the 5? I do not. Nurkic has played well, I think, during this stretch of struggle. Like, there's somebody on Twitter today that said, like, I don't know. There's some Nurkic hate on Twitter basically blaming Nurkic for, like, the lack of effort and stuff. But, I mean, yeah, no, I know. But he was 9 for 14 today, 2 for 3 from 3. Dude, this is how you know the spacing is bad and the offense is stagnant, is he's had to become a spot-up three-point shooter, and a couple times today he ran off the line and was, like, doing dribble drive stuff. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a train wreck or anything. Like, the perimeter skill set on this team without Dame is something that I was a little worried about going into the season. When Simons is struggling and Hart isn't being aggressive enough, it's like, who is going to create shots other than Jeremy Grant, who is much better playing off the ball and shooting catch-and-shoot threes than doing stuff off the dribble today? Who's going to create things? It's not going to be Eubanks. It's not going to be Watford. It's not going to be Nas. It's not going to be Sharp. Sharp's ball handling is so bad. Like, the dude almost dribbled it off his foot in the open court when he was, like, jogging the ball up today. Like, he really needs to work on his ball handling. Justice Winslow isn't going to create anything except for bricks. Who's going to create shots? It'll become a situation where you had Yusuf Nurkic creating from the perimeter, and it was like, not bad. It was like, okay, well, Nurk, please create something from the 3-point line because everything else is so screwed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think... I mean, both Nurk and Eubanks lately have done their job, have played decent. I don't think it's a competition between those two. Even more so, I think Eubanks, the type of style he plays, is much more suited to come in off the bench and just use that energy. And I don't think he gets near as good of looks or has the impact he has defensively against starting lineups that are really good. And it was evident in games like when, Allen subs back in when he wasn't guarding a true center in the second unit. And then all of a sudden, all the same things that happened to Nurkic happened to Eubanks. And that's because of other reasons like our perimeter defense putting those two in bad positions. But I think it's weird to say, but like Eubanks and Nurk so far, at least during this stretch of a bad play are far from the reason why we're losing.
Yeah.
And I think Eubanks has been really solid in his role. I wouldn't ask him to do much more than he's capable of. I get kind of worried if you do that. And to this point, Chauncey has done a really good job of players kind of playing within their system and within their role, and only letting players that can do more do that. But it seems like, the last handful of games we've had too many players try to do things that aren't in their skill set and or just forgetting what makes them good players at like cutting if you're Winslow and stuff, and it needs to be better.
I just think the offense is too stagnant, so guys are almost forced to do things that they're not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to people not cutting enough, moving enough off ball. It's like the freelance offense I thought was good, and it's regressed. There was a lot of like drive, kick, cuts, just a lot of movement, ball movement, player movement, and it made things easy. Like Nas, if he has a lane, can drive straight, right? But if everybody's standing around and he has a defender in a stance in front of him, he's not as good. And he's 2 for 7 tonight, 1 for 4 from 3. He did not have a good shooting game. But that's kind of the problem you run into is you got these guys that play their roles well, but when the offense collectively bogs down and becomes stagnant, all of a sudden they're forced to try and create when. Like I said, we have playmaking, like guys that can pass. I'm starting to think I overrated that a little bit, but that also should not be confused with guys that can create their own shot, because you don't have enough guys that can create their own shot for the offense to be stagnant. I think that's huge with this team, and I think that's been a problem with bench lineups and will continue to be a problem with bench lineups because we ran a bench in the first half, Eric, with Grant in the game, with Eubanks and Watford, 2 guys that you can't trust to shoot threes at the 4 and the 5, so that shooting isn't good. That spacing isn't good. Nas, who was 1 for 4 today, 0 for 3 last game. He's 1 for 7 the last couple of games. And then you had Sharp out there, who is, 0 for 5 from threes last couple of games. So those 2 guys shooting have fallen off, but all 4 of those guys, you can't rely on them to create shots, and if they're not cutting, it's Jeremy Grant, try and do something. And we saw how that turned out in the first half. He had 4 or 5 turnovers. He had 4 turnovers on the game, but they were all in the first half, mostly him playing with that bench lineup and him driving the paint, getting collapsed on, and then he has nothing to do, nowhere to go with the ball, or him being forced to run a pick and roll with Eubanks and try and make a pocket pass. That's not really his strength. He's not a primary creator. He's a guy that works best as second or third creator. He's not somebody that you put him with the bench lineup and okay, you go and make plays for yourself and the rest of the offense. Simons can be that guy when he has it going. That's why I like him staggered with the bench lineup. That's another reason why we miss Dame, is because you can't stagger Simons with the bench lineup anymore. You're not able to have one of Dame or Ant on the court at all times. So I think that's part of another problem right now.
Yeah, and I mean, Ant did not play well outside of a stretch in the fourth where he went nuclear and almost brought us back into this game if we could get some stops. But Ant, every time he drove, there was 2 or 3 guys there. And the picks weren't getting, because Allen and Mobley are extremely mobile for bigs. You're not going to just blow by them. And if you do, you have the other one of them still waiting at the rim. And Garland was doing a good job of staying in front of him. When they put Lamar Stevens on him, he was doing a good job. But that's all because of our spacing. We start off with Winslow once again. And, I know Nurk's shooting threes, but normally you wouldn't want him just camped out at the 3-point line.
Yeah, it turns him into a 3-point spot-up shooter.
Yeah. And then, Hart shot 1 3 this game. He's not shooting threes, so he's providing no spacing on that either. So, what people don't understand with Ant is, yes, he's making these turnovers like you pointed out at the beginning of the show, but he's got nowhere to go on these drives. And if you have Dame out there with Grant or Sharp when he's hitting, those kind of guys provide that spacing. And I look at a guy the Sacramento Kings. I know they lost tonight, but have been playing really good basketball. And one of the guys who's really stepped up was an offseason trade they made for Kevin Huerter. And that guy can shoot the ball, he can pass the ball, he can handle the ball a little bit. And that's kind of what you're talking about is we have guys who can handle the ball a little bit, can pass a little bit, but they don't have the shooting. Or we have the guys who can shoot it but can't handle and pass or whatever. So like maybe that's the key is to having someone, maybe condensing the roster down a little bit to get one of those players that can do those things but also shoot a little bit. Maybe you have to overpay for that kind of stuff. But yeah, like we definitely need those guys. And if they're not going to, if a player like Josh Hart isn't going to provide that spacing by shooting the ball every once in a while, he's got to find a way to be more effective on offense by cutting and getting the ball closer to the basket, because he's been finishing better lately. But I don't know, like we just have to find a way to use the strengths of our players versus that kind of stuff.
I want to have a conversation on roster construction, but first let me thank the last couple of donos. Shout out to Hyper Prime, $5 dono. What's up, Hyper Prime? Says, the beginning of the season definitely feels like a sugar high, but I'm hoping we get that intensity and hunger back soon. Thank you, Hyper Prime, for the $5 dono. Yeah, definitely a sugar high. It feels like a fever dream. So back to reality we go. Thank you for the dono. Shout out Bob and Weave, $5 donation. Says, I think Nurk's shooting is real. It looks good. Making him, he's confident. His shot is too slow for contested threes, but he can definitely do pick and pop. I agree. He's 10 for 20 and his form looks good. So I don't want him necessarily just camping behind the 3-point line, but it's like when you have other non-shooters in the lineup with him, he almost has to just to be a floor spacer, or otherwise, it's just too packed in the paint. And if he can shoot threes, then he can be a better playmaker from the top of the arc. I wish we would utilize his passing ability more. We don't at all. And when he got ran off the 3-point line a little bit today, which I've never really seen before because he hasn't proven himself as a threat until this season, and he made a couple of decent plays, decent drives. So I think that might be the next evolution of his game. We'll see if he can become a guy that can consistently knock down 2, maybe 3 threes a game and then drive off of them, because if he can, then it does make it easier to fit in some of the weirder players, Josh Hart when he's not shooting the 3 ball, Justice Winslow, Trenton Watford, etc.
Yeah, I think it's tough because if you have a big that gets the rim protector out of the lane, it's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. But against a team like Cleveland, they have 2 of them, so it's a little less effective because you're not bringing both of them out, so they still have one in there. But against most teams that only have one good rim protector, say like Rudy Gobert or something like that, you bring him out of the paint and have to have him come out or just sag off completely if he makes them pay for that. That's much better. But yeah, it's tough against the Cavs because even if it did draw a lot of attention, after he started making a couple of them, they still have such a good paint defense with the rest of their players that it doesn't give us that much of an advantage. So, but most teams, I agree with you, it's pretty good.
Yep. And then shout out Pim Oraz for the $5 donation. Says, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Pim. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to everyone else. Hopefully you enjoy your Thanksgivings tomorrow. Let's talk roster construction. I think the Blazers, you already kind of touched on this, but I think they need a 3-and-D guy that can defend at the point of attack off the bench. And that's hard to find. That should have been Nas, but I still don't fully trust his shot. I know he shot the 3-ball well. I don't fully trust his shot on a consistent basis, and on the ball he hasn't been great. Winslow provides some, passing ability and can kind of handle the ball for a forward, but in the end he's 6'4" and can't shoot. Can't make a layup. He's just very, very, insanely inefficient. Just doesn't make shots. The spacing is rough with him in the game. There's a reason he's best as a small ball 5 is because, when he's not at the 5, when he's next to a Eubanks or a Watford or a Nurkic, the shooting just is not good enough. The spacing isn't good enough. So I think that's probably going to be the one skill set this team needs to address when the trade deadline comes around, is trying to find a backup forward that's able to defend on the ball, defend, 3-4 positions, and then also hit threes at a good enough rate to keep defenses honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think it's becoming more apparent than a backup center, actually.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I didn't think I'd be saying that.
I didn't think I'd be saying that
We
either.
had so many forwards,
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any targets off the top of your mind that would fit that mold?
Well, the other problem's going to be with how many teams are so jumbled up, and with 10 teams that have a legit chance via the play-in now. It makes it tough to know what teams are even going to consider selling at this point, because even the worst teams in the league, say the Lakers, who a few weeks ago looked like they were maybe headed that way, are only a couple games out of the middle of the pack in the playoff standings. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's still too early to know. We're about 3 weeks from when most of the players who were signed in the offseason can be traded. But yeah, got to figure something out.
Yeah.
The problem is we'd have a trouble matching any salaries more than $6 million. So
it'd have to be a cheapish salary. I mean, I would trade out Justice Winslow to match that type of player. I would even consider trading Nas if it's a young team looking for a young player under a contract for multiple years, like Nas. That's $8 million there. It just would have to be a good enough player to justify giving up on Nas's long-term potential. I mean, Nas is still young. I don't know, man. I still just don't really know exactly what to think of Nas at this point, but he's still only 22 years old, believe it or not, which is funny because our first stream was when he got drafted. He's still only 22. So I don't know who fits that mold. I wouldn't do that trade for Jay Crowder. I don't know. That's kind of the right idea of a player. I don't know. Jay Crowder to me just seems better off ball. I don't know. I know he can defend on the ball. I don't know. I don't think Phoenix would want Winslow plus Nas either.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Jay Crowder would want to be here. He doesn't want to be in Phoenix. So Harrison Barnes makes too much, and he's not a good defensive player. He doesn't fit the mold whatsoever. And I'm not trading Nas for an O'Shea Brissett or an Alfonso McKinney, unless obviously we got back a first or something. So it's really hard to figure out what type of players would fit that mold. I haven't thought trades until now. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck.
Yeah. I wonder if this is kind of out of left field, but if there was a way to get a Denny Avdia from the Wizards.
Yeah, I mean Avdia would be nice. What's he shooting from?
I don't know what he's shooting from three.
He's shooting 32%, and he's
shot.
Good. He's all 3 seasons. He's between 31.5 and 31.8%. So
yeah, his shot looks so much better than it is.
I know. Yeah. But if he was making threes, that would be the type of guy that you would take a look at. I thought his playmaking, passing ability, would be a little bit better, but he's still only 21 years old.
I'm just trying to think of guys who don't make a lot of money but might be attainable if certain teams have log jams, but you're not going to get the perfect player for what we have to offer, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Throw out names. You guys have wanted to talk trades. My last mailbag was a bunch of trade questions. Here we are. We're finally here, guys. A little bit early. We're 18 games into the season, but
and yeah, Blazer fan keeps mentioning that we have Jabari Walker. I don't know if he's ready for that, but I wouldn't also mind just seeing him get a chance when we have opportunities.
In a game like this where we're like screwed going into halftime, even though it's still somewhat close, we're like basically just don't look good, and Justice Winslow looks terrible. Play Jabari the second half.
Yeah.
And just see if he can provide a spark. Like, I felt like this game was lost from at the end of the first quarter. Like, I was pretty confident we were going to lose this game based on what went on in the first quarter. Like, give Jabari a chance and see if he can help out with the spacing, maybe give Ant a little bit more space, and then maybe Ant gets going. More likely would be teams collapse off Jabari Walker, but we know he can shoot the ball. If he gets 3 open threes and makes a couple of them, that might be a spark. Otherwise, it's like we're trying to, fit Justice Winslow and the spacing's bad, and we're hoping that his passing can make up for it, but when he doesn't have the ball, it's rough, and then he's out here shooting too much, and it's just a mess. And then defensively, he's not giving enough effort. Like, in that sort of situation, try Jabari.
And that's been the frustrating thing about the turnovers and the injuries is, one, with the turnovers, it's like, oh, Jeremy Grant makes a bad pass, and then Ant makes a bad pass, and then, like, Trendon Watford comes in and turns the ball over, and then, like, Nas travels, and, like, it's not just, like, one person. So, like, when you have the injuries, like, how do you hold people accountable? And then the defensive mistakes, it's literally, like, every single person's making mistakes on defense at some point in the game. But, like, if we had a fully healthy roster and we had players that weren't making mistakes, like, you wouldn't think Gary Payton would make too many defensive mistakes or whatever. You can then sit someone down and be like, dude, you can't blow that coverage, or you can't not communicate that screen, and sit down if you're not going to do it. Next time I put you in, you better communicate it better, or you better not fall asleep off ball, or you're going to go right back to the bench. And unfortunately, we don't have enough players right now, and they're all making mistakes. So we can't really do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there was a rumor today about Sadiq Bey. Was it legitimate?
It was from Jake L. Fisher, just saying that he was available. I doubt the Pistons are going to be relatively.
See, I don't know if he checks both of those. I don't know if he checks either of those boxes right now, because he's shooting 29% from 3 this year. He's struggling.
And he's been bad on defense too.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
it's just hard to find those types of players.
It's hard to know though. That team's so bad. Like,
yeah. Charlotte has no one that can play defense.
Yeah, great point. I mean, we haven't even mentioned this. Sean Priv in chat says we're missing Keon. Actually, I never thought we'd say that this year, right? And that game those 2 games where Ant and Dame missed against Phoenix, like, you could just tell the energy when he came in the game. He made a ton of mistakes, but, like, I don't blame a young player for making mistakes if you're flying around and hustling and providing energy. So that would be nice to have him right now to come in and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want a guy that's a little bit more reliable of a 3-point shooter, because he kind of falls in, like, the Nas category for me in terms of 3-point shooting, and Nas has been better.
To be fair, he hasn't had a long sample size of doing it.
I mean, that's what it
has improved a lot.
But it's like when Gary Payton II's here is like, you're not going to see Keon, right? Unless you're playing Gary Payton II as the backup 4, which still, I know he can defend against 4s at a high level and whatnot. I don't know, I'd rather have some size, but like size that can shoot 3s, so you can give space to cut for Gary Payton II with the bench unit. It's just, it's hard to find the right forward that has that size, man, that can also defend on the perimeter, because like PJ Washington has always been thrown into trade rumors, and he's 6'7" with like a 7-foot wingspan. He has size and whatnot, and he can surely shoot the ball, but he's not going to defend anybody on the perimeter at a high level. So it's just like, people will toss out. Yeah, I feel like people always toss out Kelly Oubre, but he's not a defensive player. It's hard to find guys like that, man. It's so
Alex Wolf says Melo.
Yeah, God.
Carmelo Anthony back? Yeah.
You want to make me throw up and stop talking trades for the rest of the season? I mean, dude, I don't know.
I certainly see Landau's 1980s point 2. Don't get rid of anyone on the team. Let him mature. I mean, that also is a fair thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just like, will maturing and giving them time allow these guys to develop enough pride to like go out there and compete? Because like Josh Hart plays with pride, right? And you look at the not to overreact to plus minus, but you look at the plus minus today. Josh Hart's the best on the team. He's a +6 in his 33 minutes. In the 15 minutes he did not play, the Blazers got outscored by 23 points. Eric,
24.
20. They lost by 18. He was a +6. Yeah, 24 points. I shortchanged him. Yeah. With Josh Hart on the court today, they won by 6. With him off the court today, they lost by 24. And I think that's because he's
injuries.
Yeah, but obviously noise, but Josh Hart right now is the best point of attack defender and the most competitive player on this team, the guy that consistently plays the hardest. So even if he's not shooting offensively and only shot 5 shots in his 33 minutes, still what he does defensively, I think this team needs. And that's another reason why I think Gary Payton II will help a lot. But it's just like, I want a Josh Hart. He doesn't have to play make like that or anything. I think we have enough guys that can pass and do this and do that. Just give me a Josh Hart defensively that can just knock down threes. Mm-hmm. And is maybe a little bit bigger. That's what I want. It's just impossible to find.
$20 million. Yeah. Those are max players.
But see, that's why I wanted like Trey Murphy in the draft a couple years ago. Wouldn't it be nice or just get him in the CJ McCollum trade? Because he would help out this team so much.
And for people mentioning players like Nerlens Noel and Patrick Beverly, stuff like that, those players all make too much. We don't really have. You'd have to trade Josh Hart to get them. Like, we're not trading Josh Hart, so yeah. To find another Josh Hart.
Target. I can't even come up with a good target, man.
Maybe that's a good thing to research.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here looking on Fanspo and everything, and I can't find. Like, you can always go back to Kenrick Williams, but he isn't shooting the ball well this year. He's shooting.
He also signed that extension, so it's kind of tricky with this contract.
Yeah, he shot 34% last year, 33% this year. But, I mean, that we might come back to Kenrick and see if we can figure out. Because he's on a poison pill, right?
I don't remember if they did the same thing with Dort or if they just gave him an extension. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a veteran extension.
Alex Wolf. No one wants Dylan Windler. Stop.
Yeah, why do you keep trying to pawn off Dylan Windler, man? I think that dude's been hurt and out every single time we've played the Cavs in his career.
Yeah. That makes us Jason Tatum. Yeah, that'd be awesome if we had Jason Tatum.
Would be nice, but yeah, no, unfortunately not. No, possible. Because that's the thing, no winning team's going to want to give up a player like that that's playing minutes. It's going to have to be a team struggling, and as you said, there's just like 20 teams that I think will be in a competitive situation, so it's going to be hard, and that means those types of players are going to come even more at a premium.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're probably going to have to give up more. There's nobody on San Antonio that fits that profile. That is gettable.
Gee, there's just. I mean, I don't even want to talk trades with Toronto because.
Yeah.
Outside of Gary Trent, who Nick Nurse threw under the bus the other day, I mean, yeah, most of them either make too much or the amount we'd have to give up to get them is not possible.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Caleb Martin from Miami, maybe 3-team Crowder to the Heat, but I don't know what we'd give the Suns that they want. That's where you maybe have to throw in a Keon Johnson. I don't know. Yeah, I can't find a single target. I thought I was going to be able to find a target and then be done with this and not spend this much time on this, but I can't find a single target.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a struggle. It's rough out here. It's going to have to be like a under-the-radar guy. Shout out Brian Tadovich, $2 donut says Kevin Durant. You're right, Brian. Kevin Durant. Good old Kevin Durant. I mean, that's the other thing is if like he ends up on the trade market, like are we desperate enough? Do we make that splash? Like, what do we do?
I don't know. It's going to be really tough to get 44 million and get them the pieces they want back in a trade. But
Yep. Jaden McDaniels was tossed out there. Here's the thing. Any young player that is a 3-and-D guy with some size is basically impossible to get, because if they're on a winning team, that team is going to value their contributions. If they're on a losing team, they're still young, so that team's going to think they're part of their future.
mm-hmm.
So that's the problem. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a... What about... I wonder how much it would take, like, if San Antonio... I mean, he's a part of their future, so... But maybe they got desperate enough to tank for Wemby. Maybe Vassell would be gettable for if you gave up enough, but it would take a ton.
Yeah, I doubt we have enough to get that. I mean, you're probably talking Sharp at that point.
I've never been a Vassell fan, but he's been balling this year, and he's a good defender, and he's shooting 44% from three, and he's 22 years old. I mean, you would all... If you're serious about truly trying to win this year, you'd almost have to do that. You move Josh Hart to the bench with Gary Payton II. Vassell slots in at the starting three. I mean, he'd be phenomenal as the starting three, and this is coming from somebody that wasn't high on him coming into the draft. He's maybe the most improved player in the league, so... I mean, I don't know. Like, but that's the thing is, I don't want to give up on Sharp. And I'm not saying I would trade him for Vassell, but Vassell would be perfect. I mean, you'd have to give up Sharp or Ant, so.
Yep, don't see that happening.
Would you rather have Ant or Vassell right now?
I'd still rather have Ant, but yeah, I don't know if Vassell's been very good.
Shout out Blazer fan Ebby for becoming a starter level member. Welcome to the club. You can become a channel member.
Back.
Welcome back to the club if you're back to the club. But you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. You get a monthly member message. Let me know in the Discord if you're a channel member, and I can make your name green. If your name's already green, then you don't have to worry about that. If you want to join our Discord, link in the description box below. Yeah, Trevin gets it with the Vassell thing. Neesmith is a name tossed out there. Eric, that's a guy you've liked for a while.
I mean, that's another guy who hasn't shot good enough in the NBA yet to do it. I mean, if you could get him for cheap, sure. But
still, he's a wing. I want a forward.
Yeah.
Kendrick Williams might be the guy to come back to, honestly. But your Justice Winslow in seconds probably isn't enough for Kendrick Williams.
Yeah. Well, want to do breakdowns?
Let's do around the NBA first.
Okay.
And then we'll end the stream with breakdowns. Here are the scores from today. I need to update this. I got sent an updated final, but the games with the times are final. The Hornets beat the 76ers, Eric, 107-101. The Sixers were playing without their big three of Maxey, Harden, and Embiid. Let me pull up the NBA section here. Charlotte was without LaMelo Ball, though. Terry Rozier had a big fourth quarter. Scored 9 of his 22 points in the final 5 minutes as Charlotte gets the victory. They moved to 5-14. Philadelphia's at 500, 9-9 for the 76ers, who have dealt with their own injury issues, but they'll be okay because they're injured, just like the Blazers will be okay because they're injured and playing a tough schedule, right? Other than that, 19 from PJ Washington.
They had their season last night when they beat the Nets, and Ben Simmons was shushing the crowd and getting pumped after making free throws, and then did nothing in the second half.
Yeah, yikes! That was a noof. What about T-Wolves Pacers, Eric?
The T-Wolves go into Indiana and beat the hottest team in the league. Well, the hottest team in the East, I guess. The Kings were also hot going into tonight. They get, let's see, 23, 11, and 8 from Towns and 21 and 16 from Rudy Gobert. 19 from Edwards, 18 from McDaniels, and 15 from Russell. So their whole starting lineup scored at least 15 points. Miles Turner had 31 including a monster dunk. And then Halliburton had only 10 points on 4 of 15 shooting, so his worst shooting game of the year, but had 14 assists.
He's the best passer in the league right now.
Yeah. Mathurin, 21 off the bench on 5 of 11 shooting, 2 for 2 from 3. But yeah, the Pacers finally lose.
Meanwhile, the Sacramento Kings also finally lose, Eric.
Yep.
They lose on the road to the Atlanta Hawks, 115-106. For the Hawks, 35.7 assists from Trae Young. DeJounte Murray had a rough shooting night, so did John Collins, but it didn't matter. Good defensive game from the Hawks. AJ Griffin, 12 points on 4 for 8 shooting off the bench. Meanwhile, for the Kings, De'Aaron Fox, 7 for 20 shooting, 18 points. He struggled. Kevin Huerter, 4 for 10 in his return to Atlanta, 13 points. And then Keegan Murray was 0 for 5 in his 21 minutes, 4 points for the rookie. Off the bench, Malik Monk led the team in scoring, 27 points, 12 for 18 shooting, but not enough. The Kings lose after winning, 7, 8 in a row, something like that. The Kings are now 10-7.
Yep, still better than us. The Mavericks get blown out by Boston, despite 42, 8, and 9 from Luka and 26 and 12 off the bench from Christian Wood. Celtics were led by Tatum and Brown, who had 37 and 31, respectively.
Meanwhile, in Miami, the Heat get the win 113-105. They were without a multitude of players as well. Jimmy Butler missed this game. But Bam Adebayo played. He had 15 points on 5 for 15 shooting, all from 2. So, a tough finishing night for Bam, but it's okay, though. 28 points from Kyle Lowry, who had a performance like he was going against the Blazers. 5 for 6 shooting from 3, 7 for 12 from the field. Tyler Hero was 6 for 15 from the field. Meanwhile, you got one of the Martin twins, Caleb Martin, who had a phenomenal game. 24 points, 10 for 17 from the field, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 for 9 from 3. I mean, that would be a guy that, if he was gettable, I would definitely love on this Blazer team, but not really a realistic trade option there, I don't think. Miami gets the win. They moved to 8-11 on the season. I mean, you're talking about a team that was one shot away from the NBA Finals last year. They're 8-11, Eric.
Mm-hmm. And Brooklyn goes into Toronto, and they get the win tonight. Toronto was playing without, 3/4 of their good players. Van Vliet, Siakam, Scotty Barnes, all out of this game. And it showed. They did not play well at all. Their leading scorer was Gary Trent with 19 and OG with 15, but just not enough firepower for them. Durant, after scoring 25 points all season in every game, doesn't score 25 last night, only scores 12 tonight, but is a plus 30 in his 32 minutes. Kyrie had 29 and bounce back game for the Nets after losing last night.
Yeah, Nets are looking better. I don't know if it's a situation where KD asks for a trade again or anything, because the Nets are playing better basketball. The Bulls are playing better basketball as well. They beat the Celtics last night, and they beat the Bucks tonight, the top 2 teams in the East. They win 118-113, do what the Blazers can't. DeMar DeRozan had 36 points, 8 assists on 14 for 24 from the field. Kobe White, 14 off the bench. Vucevic and Levine, 18 apiece. For the Bucks, Giannis had another Giannis game, 36 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists on 15 for 27, almost an identical stat line that he had against the Blazers. Brook Lopez also had 28 for 16. Outside of that, not much help. Drew Holiday only shot 6 times, had 14 points, 11 assists. Josh Hart type of performance from him. And then 10 off the bench from George Hill.
Yep. And then the Nuggets come back. They were down as many as 13 in the fourth quarter after a huge third quarter by the Thunder. They come back and force overtime and then win in overtime in Oklahoma City. 31 and 11 assists for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the loss. But Nikola Jokic had 39 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. And they got a 30 spot from Aaron Gordon as well to win that one.
Yep. Pelicans blow out the Spurs 129-110. They were without CJ McCollum in this game, so Obviously, they're better with CJ. Just throwing it back to the past with that one. I'm just kidding. But 22 from Valanciunas, their leading scorer, though. 32 from Zion Williamson. 14 for 18 from the field. He dominated in a matchup against Jeremy Sohan. But Sohan was good in his own right. Had 12 points, 6 for 10 from the field. The rookie out of Baylor in the loss for the Spurs. Devontae Graham for the Pelicans off the bench, 21 points. He had a good game in CJ's absence. Meanwhile, for the Spurs, we already talked about him. Devin Vassell, he had 26 points, 10 for 17 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3. McDermott, 21 off the bench, 9 for 12. And then you got 2 games going on right now, Eric.
Yeah, late in the fourth quarter, about 5 minutes left, the Pistons are up 6 in Utah, a night after, I believe they beat Denver last night in Denver. So Pistons playing well. They were 12-point underdogs in this game. Looks like they're going to cover even if they lose.
Yeah.
But Clarkson has 22 for the Jazz. For the Pistons, pretty balanced scoring, but Bagley's leading the way with 19.
They don't have Cade, man. That's some awful defense from Utah. Kevin Knox has 17. Kevin Knox is still in the league somehow. I always forget that he's still in the league because he just is so bad, but tonight he's not. 5 for 7 from 3. See, here's the thing about the Blazers, okay? At least the past couple losses have come against good teams on the road, right? And at least we don't have Dame. Utah had their hot start. They have their guys, and they're
Conley
playing.
got hurt.
Yeah, but they have Markkanen, they have Clarkson, they have Olynyk, they have Sexton, they have Malik Beasley. Like, they have their guys, right? And they're playing at home against a Detroit team missing Cade, and they are struggling right now. So, yeah, I mean, at least it's not that sort of situation. They could still pull this out. They just cut it to within 4, but at least it's not that.
Yeah, I was saying Conley, when he went down in our game, kind of let us come back. We were not playing well until then, and then went on a run, but...
Yeah, I mean, we don't have GP2. All right, there you go. And we don't have Dame, but they have Markkanen. And Dame is 10 times better for the guy that always comes in here saying, Larry Markkanen MVP. But basically my point, Eric, is at least we're, it comes against the Bucks and the Cavs, teams that are hard to beat even if we were healthy and playing well. I could only imagine the panic if we were doing what the Jazz were doing right now. And then the Warriors are up 7 against the Los Angeles Clippers, 48-41 with 4:42 left in the second quarter. For the Warriors, Steph Curry has had a phenomenal season so far. In this game, he only has 7 points, though, 3 for 8 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. It's Klay Thompson who's going off. He's 4 for 5, has 15 points. And then for the Clippers, who are playing without Kawhi Leonard, without Luke Kennard, and without Paul George, love how I put Luke Kennard second, they're keeping this close, only down 6. They got 9 from Reggie Jackson, 9 off the bench from Norman Powell, 8 from Marcus Morris. This game's on ESPN right now. That is around the NBA. Now it's time for Brains Breakdown. Eric, how many plays we got? We got 4?
Yes, 4 plays tonight.
4 plays for you guys. This is play number 2. Let me take out play number 2 and put in play number 1. Don't know why I put in play number 2.
Where the heck is my... All right, so I have several examples of just flat-out disgusting breakdowns in defense tonight.
Let's go.
So the first one's going to be an example of why I'm not a huge fan against teams with really good ball handlers playing a 2-3 zone. And the reason is when the player's right in the middle of the floor, it's hard to know who has what assignment there, who's supposed to go where. Now, in this setup, there is a man higher on the top side than the bottom side. So Grant should be shading over to that side, and Sharp should take ball in this situation. But as we go to the second slide, we see... I got to find my phone.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened to my phone, so I can't look at the
you
picture.
throw it during this game?
Maybe. But anyways, so we have this next slide where we see that Sharp ends up, instead of staying on ball, shades down to the near side, and Grant's kind of staying there. So no one's neither of them are taking ball. And you see Garland's there, or Eubanks is there if he drives, but that shouldn't be his responsibility to come out here and guard them if we're in a zone. This pick should be inconsequential because Sharp should already be on the other side of Allen right here. So just terrible area recognition or like spacing here by our defense. And as we go to the next slide, we see that Sharp just stays down. Grant goes over to the shooter on the other side because he thinks Sharp's going to get through that. And Garland just takes a step in and completely uncontested jumper. Just stupid.
Yep.
like you can't win playing this crappy.
Yeah, I mean, that is a situation that's kind of hard to necessarily recognize if you're Sharp. But it should be a situation.
Grant's got to communicate that better, but
Eubanks, I think, can also communicate that better. But I don't know exactly what the communication would be for Sharp to.
Well, it broke down from the beginning because Sharp, like I said, Sharp should be. That's why you got to play more. It's got to be more of a 1-1-3 because then the top guy always takes ball in the center, and then the bottom guy between the first and the 3 line on the back would take who's ever higher on whichever side. Because like here, you wouldn't want Grant to guard Garland and Sharp to go over to his right because there's no one over there, and he doesn't need to go guard Wade in the corner because we have Winslow there. So Grant's got to take that top shooter up there. And so, just really bad.
Also, you don't really have to respect Jared Allen behind the 3-point line. So, I mean, like, you don't have to worry about Allen here. Like, Sharp just needs to stay with the ball for sure. So, yeah, I mean, but that in a zone, that's kind of like the weak spot is in between those two top guys, especially if you spread the court in a way like this where it's kind of unclear who's supposed to get the ball in the middle of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Like, it's a smart team. They just got a free shot.
Yep. Play number 2, what do we got?
All right, play number 2. We have. I'm loading it on my computer because I still can't find my.
Oh, you're on your computer, huh?
Oh, I found it. All right, so we have a situation where we're in man this time, and we have Jeremy Grant's going to be on Garland. Sharp is guarding someone. Nurk is guarding Allen, obviously. And as we go to the second slide, we see Allen comes up like he's going to set a screen on Grant, but doesn't, just slides behind him. And Grant still...
Oh, God. I don't know what play this is, but oh, God, I'm scared.
So Allen doesn't even set a screen, and Jeremy Grant gets his horrible screen navigation. Like, I mean, this is a partly Nurk's fault too for not communicating, but Grant just, without even getting screened, Allen runs by him. Nurk kind of is there to help just in case Allen does set a screen because he's not sure that he doesn't know at this point that he's not running by.
Yeah.
But then Grant, even though he's still in front of him, has no screen, then just turns around and runs away from Garland. And Nurk thought he was supposed to recover, and Garland just walks into a wide. You can't make this stuff up, man.
Yeah, that's
like
bad.
He didn't even set a screen. It's like,
okay, there we go. There's the slide. I don't know what happened. It like glitched out, but yeah, he turned and ran away from the ball, man. Yeah.
It's like he patted him on the butt, and that was enough to. Oh my god! And if that happens like once in a game, fine. Like, okay, cool. Like, we messed up. But yeah,
like, just put a guy that'll dig in
and
get into the ball.
Where's the intensity?
And
where's
yeah,
the
you know, not just like somebody that can fight through screens, that'll dig in and stay on the ball and try and give Garland fits. That's the type of guy. Like Josh Hart, I don't think Josh Hart does this, man. And I'd rather have Jeremy Grant in help position than Josh Hart anyway. So, yeah, stop putting Jeremy Grant on Darius Garland, John Morant, De'Aaron Fox. Shoot, we play the Knicks next, Eric, and I did a preview. I guessed it on Knicks Fan TV, Knicks channel with like almost 60K subs. And they started talking about matchups. They started talking about Jeremy Grant versus Julius Randle, and I was like, well, I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremy Grant guards Jalen Brunson, and if that happens, I'll be ranting about it on Twitter. Because, yeah, I mean, this is what happens. He sucks at navigating screens. It's so frustrating.
There wasn't even a screen.
He slipped the, yeah, oh, God. And I warned you guys back in, like, June that this was gonna happen if we put Jeremy Grant up against guards that run screens. And
why can't Chauncey see this? What is Chauncey, like, why can he not?
It's just a blind spot, I guess, man. Yeah. I would have went into training camp like, okay, we can't do that. I've seen, maybe we'll try it in training camp to see if he's improved, but should have known this. I mean, I shouldn't have been able to warn 4 months before the season, and now we're over a month into the season, and it's exactly like I predicted, and we're still doing it.
Yeah, and let's go to the next play.
Oh boy. Let's do it. Let me load it up here. Play number 3. Can't wait. There we go. All right, what do we got?
So, we have a play.
We got Nas on the ball.
Okay, I gotta find this one. All right, so we have Nas on the ball. Rolo's... I can't even do this. Rolo's gonna come set a screen.
Yeah.
On Mitchell, who's on fire.
Yeah.
And you see the screen in the second clip, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where's Yusuf Nurkic? We just went back to playing super drop coverage.
Yeah. He relapsed to Stotts. Yeah. That's his way of showing us that he truly misses Terry Stotts.
Like, I understand Rolo's not going to be as effective as Allen and Mobley, but that means you help more, not less. Like, makes no sense, especially with how well they're playing, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is just bad communication. I don't know if Chauncey told him to do this or what, but I have to call out Nurk here. Just horrible. I mean, this is one of his worst plays of the night. He was pretty good other than this. But then in the third slide, you see how held up Nas does. He doesn't even get around the pick. Like,
I don't even think
no fight to get around it.
Well,
he
honestly,
thought
Eric,
it was a switch situation, and
I think
Nurk was nowhere to be found.
Eric, I think Nurkic didn't even communicate that the screen was there.
Yeah, I know. That's. I think so. He gets blown up, but even so, like, you'd think maybe, Nurk's going to be there, right? But no, Nurk's nowhere in the area, and we just give up a wide open 3-pointer. And I mean, I had to narrow this down to 4. I mean, I have like 10 examples of this throughout the game. But then, as you see in the last slide of this particular play, Nas turns around and is like, "What the F, man?"
Yeah, that's the type of reaction you give a teammate when they don't call out a screen, because it can hurt if you start running with an offensive player and you just accelerate into a screen. That's like dangerous. That can hurt. So based on his reaction, I think Nurkic just didn't even seem to like know that.
Help either.
Yeah, like it's like it's like he was thinking about something else, or I don't know. Like, I don't think Nurkic was. There was a lot of people that were terrible defensively tonight. I don't think Nurkic was terrible, but this defensive possession was terrible. You gotta communicate the screen. I don't think he communicated the screen, which would explain why Nas was so hung up. Like, the way Nas steps into this, it's like he didn't realize the screen was there.
Yeah. Well, he's terrible. Well, at first he's on the top side in that picture, and then he ends up on the bottom side of Rolo. So that, to me, indicates that he thought it was a switch situation.
I mean, but
he
just
no one there to switch.
But he, like, on the clip, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it was like he turned and ran right into the screen. Like, he, like,
I think it's both true. Like, Nurk didn't call it out, and there's no way we're playing drop like this on Mitchell in an open court like this.
Nurk was thinking about Thanksgiving dinner, says Joey. I mean, but you have no shot getting through a screen if your teammate doesn't communicate. That's like a cardinal sin as a teammate to not communicate that a screen is there, especially when it's an on-ball screen.
You have no shot at being a good defense if you give up these kind of shots.
All right, what do we got for play number
All right,
four?
play number 4, we have a situation. Oh, look who it is again. We have Jeremy Grant guarding Darius Garland.
Oh, boy.
On the ball, right? Yeah, so we're set up in man once again. Pretty good setup. And then Garland's going to go, Mitchell's going to come up and Garland's going to pass it to him and then get a handoff from Mitchell. And this is Winslow and Grant guarding Garland and Mitchell, right? When we have Hart and Ant in the game. So they're not even guarding the other team's guards. And so in this situation, if you have those two, Grant and Winslow, that shouldn't be auto switches. And just whoever has the right angle takes whichever player there, right?
Yep.
So they're going to get kind of held up in this, but eventually Winslow recovers back after Allen comes in and then gets in the picture and sets a screen. And they don't really get an advantage, right? So pretty good so far. Okay. Then then Garland's going to try to drive on Winslow. Doesn't really have the angle, so he sees Mobley on the baseline, and he throws to Mobley. And Hart, for how much of a size disadvantage he has, does a great job of cutting off a Mobley power dribble.
Yeah.
And Mobley doesn't get it. But look at Jeremy Grant in this picture, right? His back is turned, right, to both their shooters. He has no idea where either of them are. And as we go to the next slide, Mobley's going to turn around. Grant is still standing in the same spot, even though his guy, Garland, is now fading to the corner, and he has no idea that he's there. So all Mobley would have had to do was kick it out to the corner. Garland, open three. But on top of that, we have Winslow.
Yeah, how did Winslow end up in this position?
Winslow decides to just go all the way down into the paint, even though Hart cut off Mobley. It's obvious because Mobley gave up his dribble. Eubanks is recovered back to Allen. There's no advantage there. But somehow both are alleged two best defenders. One is just caught ball watching. The other just vacates one of their best players for no reason. And as we see, Mobley has two people to pass out to. In the next slide, he passes it out to Mitchell. And look when Mitchell catches the ball. So it was not like the greatest pass. Mitchell had to jump for it. He catches it. And neither of them decide to go run out to the ball. Grant still turned around, still doesn't even know where the hell Garland is. Winslow thinks his responsibility is to get to the corner for some stupid reason. And we give up a wide open three, and neither of them even react or show any effort to get back into play. Just disgusting defense in basketball. And I was so bothered by our effort in this game. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like I said, those were just four of the many examples of this crap that happened all game.
Yeah, because I don't understand. It looked like Garland kind of went like he was going to set a screen, but I don't understand if Winslow's switching, why he'd go down there. Why? Winslow
There's no need to go at that point.
Winslow baffles me because he's going to a spot for no reason, and then Grant is baffling because he's just standing there like he's a spectator. But also, here's why I'd rather just put Hart on these guys, because I think Hart would do a better job off the ball. And it's almost like Jeremy Grant is seeing a 7-foot Evan Mobley post up a 6'5" Josh Hart, and he's like, well, I either gotta help or we're screwed, and he doesn't know what he should do, so he just ends up standing there doing nothing, which is obviously the worst thing. But that's why it's just like, when you have a mismatch like that, guys tend to just stop and watch, and it can create problems. But I mean, Hart did a great job. Props to Hart. It's almost like Grant got so consumed with the fact that Hart was at such a height disadvantage in the low post. It was almost like he checked out mentally of the possession.
Okay, tell me this. Let's say both Grant and Winslow were like, oh, we got to help Hart, right?
Yeah.
Neither of them help Hart. Neither of them go down there.
Yeah.
They both just stand in the middle of the paint. They're not helping him. So even if that was the mindset, I totally understand what you're saying. But then go double team him or trap him on the
well,
baseline or something. Don't just stop halfway between your man and
I
there.
think it's
and then lose.
indecision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think it's.
But you can't have indecision. You
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, like, you know, you've had those situations where it's like, do I leave the guy I'm guarding to help, or do I stay on him, and you get stuck in between, and then you just end up looking like this, right? And, but that's why I'd rather just put Grant on Mobley and Hart on the perimeter guy, because then you wouldn't have this type of thing, and both those guys are better in those roles anyways. So the way they're matching up Hart and Jeremy has been a major issue this season, and will continue to be a major issue until Chauncey learns.
And here's the thing. If you're guarding Garland, you cannot be indecisive. You have to know where he is. If you're guarding Mitchell, you have to know where he is. Those are two of the best scorers in the NBA. Like, you don't leave them to go help out Josh Hart here. You have to know where your guy is. If you're going to get the assignment of guarding one of those guards, which both of these two had on this possession, you have to know that you cannot leave them like this, let alone both of them leaving their two best shooters on the floor.
Yep. Just these types of mistakes are a problem. Remember the first preseason game when Jeremy Grant had like 3-4 blocks and he was just like a menace around the rim playing help side defense? We just don't get to see him in that sort of situation enough, unfortunately, because he's always tasked with guarding the primary ball handling guard. When you play Kevin Durant, that's the type of guy you put Jeremy Grant up against, then Josh Hart gets the assignment. Like, I don't think Chauncey could have handled matchups worse with Grant and Hart this season. I don't think he could have handled them any worse. And it's just...
the defense has still been okay. Like, it's been good at times. Like,
I would love to be able to just sit there and be like, it seems like Josh Hart might be a little bit better at the point of attack. Can you explain the reasoning for putting Jeremy Grant, or, you know, maybe bringing up a question about Grant's screen navigation or something? Like, it's just the matchups are terrible. But that's why I think you need another point of attack defender, maybe with some length, so that maybe Chauncey's like, oh, I'm going to sub in this guy early, or maybe even start the guy at the 3, and that guy can be our on-ball stopper, and Grant can play off the ball. Because Chauncey seems to want to put length on guards, even if it doesn't make sense, like this sort of stuff. That's where it'd be really nice to have, you know, a 3 with a little bit more length, I guess, so that Chauncey wants to put him on guards. He should just put Josh Hart on guards, but I don't know, man. Like, it's just so silly. And it's something that I think we went into opening night. Like, this isn't even hindsight either. That's what, like, really frustrates me, is this isn't even hindsight, man. We warned y'all. And didn't we go into opening night because we had a preview stream saying, put Josh Hart on De'Aaron Fox?
Yep. And we said,
before
do
game
not put Jeremy
one.
Grant on him. And that's what we did.
Before game one.
We still won games, but yeah, that's been confusing. And, I mean, we gave up 114 tonight. That's not... Even if our offense played better, you're going to have a tough time winning when you're giving up the kind of shots we gave up in this game.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to get into on this?
No, I mean, at least it was an early night, so we can still enjoy our evening for those on the West Coast, right? And then have a nice Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't like Eastern Conference road games, to be honest, though.
Yeah.
I'd rather these streams be at like 11:30 p.m. And I feel like Eastern Conference games not as many people tune in for. I don't know. It's still too early. I'd rather have these like out of my daily schedule, you know?
The Jazz lost at home to the Pistons on a back-to-back, so
yeah.
I guess there's some solace. Sorry,
guys,
Zach.
We are one game behind second place. Okay, we're one game behind second place without them from half the season. So, yeah, I mean, you know, let's just pretend like after the preseason, we fast-forwarded till now, don't know how any of the season's gone, and we're one game behind second place in late November. Let's go.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and obviously, there's probably people watching that don't celebrate Thanksgiving or aren't in America, so I hope you have a good day off tomorrow, and we'll see you all on Friday.
Yep, might drop a video tomorrow. We'll see. Also, go check out our TikTok account. We're gonna start doing like little clips from games, from like post-game shows, and maybe a couple film breakdowns, or maybe I'll take your Brants breakdown and put like the actual game film over it for TikTok, because that last play would be fun to put the actual clip over. So yeah, definitely check out our TikTok account, and we want to do more like YouTube short stuff, a little short form content for you guys, but I greatly appreciate everyone that tunes in and hangs out with us during these post-game streams, and everyone who donates as well. Thank you, Carter Dick, for the $2 donation at the buzzer. Says happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Carter. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone else. Check out the description box below for links, especially to our Discord, and we are out of here until next time. This has been the Blazers Uprise post-game show presented by Bet Online. We're out of here. Peace out. Go Blazers.